The Ghostly Teacher. It was a blustery autumn afternoon when rumours about Mrs. Hawthorne, the new history teacher at Laybrook School, began to fester. She was a brittle, quiet woman with waxy skin, always seen in long black dresses, as though perpetually in mourning. Students whispered about her strange mannerisms, how she never smiled, how her eyes seemed to stare just beyond them, as if watching something ghastly unfold in the space they occupied. And then there were the strange happenings in her classroom. At first, it was just a feeling. Her lessons were strangely captivating, but a suffocating silence fell upon the room whenever she spoke. The air grew colder whenever she passed by, a grave chill that clung to the skin long after she was gone, and the lights would flicker violently every time she entered or left. But it wasn't until a few weeks into the semester that things took a darker turn. One day, during the middle of class, Mrs. Hawthorne asked the students to write an essay on the history of ghosts in folklore. Everyone thought it an odd topic, but they complied. That's when things started to unravel. After class, a student named Sophie stayed behind to ask for help. As she stepped closer to her desk, the classroom door slammed shut with a final booming echo, plunging the room into a sudden, muffled silence. She spun around to see her standing in the corner, her eyes glowing with a faint phosphorescent light. The room was now freezing, the unnatural cold of a mausoleum, and Sophie's breath plumed in the air. "Mrs. Hawthorne," she called out, her voice sounding small and dead. She didn't respond. Instead, she turned her head with a slow crackling sound, and her face, pale and sharp, with deep hollows where her eyes should be, seemed to flicker and warp, the features momentarily dissolving into a skeletal mask. Sophie froze, a scream trapped in her throat. She lunged for the door, but the handle wouldn't turn. The lights above sputtered, casting shadows that crawled on the walls like living things. "History is not just about the past," Mrs. Hawthorne murmured, her voice like the dry rustle of dead leaves. "It's about what never leaves us." An oppressive sense of dread filled the room, so heavy it felt hard to breathe. Sophie backed away, unable to tear her eyes from her. Then, with a sudden, impossible speed, she was gone, vanishing into the deepening shadows. The door handle slowly turned with a loud creak, and the door swung open by itself. Sophie stumbled out, gasping for air. She was pale and shaking, but when she looked back, the classroom was empty and normal. There were no flickering lights, no strange cold. It was just a room again. The next day, Sophie tried to tell each of her best friends, Emily, Catherine, Emily D, Jem and Evie. But every time she began to speak, she felt her throat tighten as if invisible, icy fingers were squeezing it shut. They laughed it off anyway. No one believed her. But then, more students started to notice the oddities. Faint, tortured voices lingered in the halls near her room. A search of the school archives revealed Mrs. Hawthorne had supposedly been teaching at Laybrook School for over 20 years, her face appearing unchanged in old staff photographs that no living teacher remembered being taken. Even stranger, none of the current staff could recall when she had started. The rumours began to spread like a contagion. Mrs. Hawthorne wasn't just a teacher, she was a ghost, a spirit trapped in the school, never aging, never leaving. Some students swore they saw her wandering the halls late at night when rehearsing for a school play, her long black dress sweeping silently behind her as she vanished through solid walls. Others claimed they'd hear her faint, disembodied voice when they passed her classroom, but when they opened the door, the room was always empty. The few students who dared to stay after class with her couldn't stop shaking. They said the closer you got to her, the more you felt as if you were sinking into another world, a cold grey place where time had no meaning. As the weeks wore on, the once vibrant school grew quieter, a creeping rot setting into its very foundations. Teachers spoke in hushed tones about Mrs. Hawthorne, exchanging nervous glances whenever her name was mentioned. None of them would go near her classroom after hours. No one dared ask Mrs. Hawthorne about the strange occurrences, but the most unsettling theory lingered at the back of every student's mind. What if she had never been alive in the first place? The bell would ring, students would file out of the classroom, but there was always that lasting feeling that Mrs. Hawthorne, the ghostly teacher, was always watching them from the corners of every room, her hollow eyes waiting for the next lesson. And sometimes, if you stand in the empty corridor long after the day is done, you can just barely make out the faintest whisper through her closed door, an invitation. Come in and learn. Let me teach you what it is to become history.